Welcome back to A Little Bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast. I'm your host, Cody Depius. No Sam today. He is actually driving back from Las Vegas from his DJ seminar. So just me today, and got a lot to talk about. Some Milwaukee Brewers news, not news that everybody wanted to hear. There were a couple press conferences this week where Mark Attanasio had a very interesting quote, might I say. And the quote, without any context around it, essentially down to the roots, was, is it my job to go and win a World Series or to provide a summer of fun and entertainment for families? And I really, this is a subject that we've brought up in a couple of different spots here on the podcast. Of course, the one was the fact that the Brewers have not signed anybody over $1 million. They have 3 free agent contracts that they have given out so far this offseason. They're all for pitchers, and they're all just one-year deals, and the most expensive one was for $1 million for this year. This on top of the history that Mark Attanasio has with the team, that this sat sour with a lot of Brewers fans, and understandably so. I can say that quote, aside from reading anything else, just does not look good or sound good for anybody that follows the team. So I can actually pull up the full quote here with the context that's around it. But here's the quote without context. Is it my job to win a World Series, or is my job to provide a summer of entertainment and passion and a way for families to come together? A lot to say about that, a lot to digest. There was actually an interesting article by Ken Rosenthal that was published on The Athletic that talked about this, and Rosenthal essentially called Attanasio out. And the frustrating part here for everybody is the fact that the Brewers have a base right now and a foundation that is good enough to go out and win a World Series. They're young guys, and the young core that they have there, combined with Christian Yelich and probably the best pitching coach in all of baseball, who helps produce one of the best bullpens in baseball, and a consistent starting rotation regardless of the names that are in it, there's just a lot to say about this. My opinion is that Mark Attanasio, if he's owning a baseball team, should want to go out and spend money on the baseball team and to do almost everything in his power and his financial capability to help the Brewers go and win a World Series. That is the goal. And the question was asked, the context surrounding it was asking if Attanasio would be open to signing another player to a contract like they did for Christian Yelich. And his answer with that quote provided was yes, it would have to be the right opportunity, the right time, and the right player. Not saying that he regretted signing Christian Yelich or that big contracts are a bad thing. And there are some arguments here. And you can go on Twitter and read all about it. Just type in Attanasio and you'll get a whole bunch of discourse from a bunch of Brewers fans everywhere, a bunch of media heads, talking heads, social media accounts. They'll be talking about this. And he kind of alluded to the fact that he wanted to be able to do both, that he wanted to help the Milwaukee Brewers win the World Series, as well as provide a family, fun-filled summer where it brings families together. I think we can all agree that that's a good thing, but the frustrating point is that he brought it up as a rhetorical question where the answer you would think in your head is, well, you want to provide the entertainment. Like the way that the question, and it was his own rhetorical question where he was asking, is it my job to go win a World Series or to provide the fun? Usually the latter part of a rhetorical question like that alludes to the fact that that latter is what he wants to choose. He kind of implied that he wanted to be able to do both, but I don't think it should be that much of a question. And that's where all of these fans are rightfully frustrated because it shouldn't be a question. When you buy a Major League Baseball team, you are investing in an entire fan base and a franchise that had been there, and that goal of that franchise and the reason that the fans show up is the hope that one day they can hoist up a World Series trophy. And the Milwaukee Brewers have not done so ever since they had their inaugural season back in 1970. The team has been better ever since Mark Attanasio has become the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers. They actually have the fourth best record in all of baseball in regular season. Fourth best combined regular season record since Mark Attanasio bought the team. But there's not even a World Series appearance to show for it. And me personally, it's very difficult to root for a team understanding that the biggest goal is not to go win the World Series. That is the elated joy that you feel watching sports. Yes, there's a lot of great things that go without winning championships, but that's kind of the reason you watch, right? Like if you told every single one of us right now that the Milwaukee Brewers were never ever going to win a World Series in your lifetime, would you want to root for them? Like, and I'm sure there are people that would say yes because you bleed Brewer blue, like Craig Counsell said that he did. And my answer is probably yes, but it's certainly difficult. I mean, I watch Wisconsin football knowing that there's a very slim to none chance that they'll ever win a national championship in my lifetime. And you love these Brewers, and you love the franchise, and you love the players and the coaches, but there's just something missing when it comes to going out and winning a World Series here for this Brewers franchise. You can go back and you can think of past winners. The Dodgers, that's all money. They won in 2020. They won last year, okay? Boston won in 2018. Money. 2019, Houston. They paid their players. They also had one of the greatest stretches of draft picks of all time that you can think of in player development and what they were building. Even the Texas Rangers. That's a smaller market, but they went out and they bought that roster. They bought that team. They went out and they got a Corey Seager and a Marcus Semien and spent over $400 million in a single offseason. Could you imagine Mark Attanasio even having that thought come across his mind to go spend $300 million in an offseason? And I'm not saying that he needs to go do that or they're not going to win. But there are sacrifices that need to be made. You don't own a baseball team because you're looking to make a profit. If you want to go make a profit, you invest in something else. Like that's the bottom line. You can go back to your hedge funds or your banking or your MLS team or whatever it is. If you're looking to make a profit, go make a profit. And if you own a baseball team, it is not to make a profit. You own a baseball team because you're a fan of the team, you love the sport, you respect the history of the game, and you want to bring the best experience, yes, to your fans. The best experience for a fan base is when they go all the way. I've experienced one Super Bowl for Green Bay, and that was one of those moments that I'll never forget in my life. And it's kind of been able to carry my Packer fandom up to now with 15 years of not even going back to the big game, but being so close to getting to it, was just holding on to that feeling and remembering how great it was to watch that team go all the way and win the whole thing. And the Brewers have provided a lot of great memories in the last few years. It feels kind of hypocritical to sit here in this chair. Maybe not hypocritical, but we're spoiled, really. The Brewers fans nowadays are spoiled compared to the Brewers fans of old. The Brewers fans that followed in the late 90s, early 2000s, that those Brewers fans, they're wishing that they were in our seat right now. But they've built up, and Attanasio has helped with this. They've built up the franchise where the front office is good, the player development is good, your coaches are always solid. They have the foundation to go and get it done. But there's just, you got to be able to go and sacrifice and commit when you know that you're missing just one or two pieces to give yourself a chance to go all the way. And this year, the Milwaukee Brewers know that they could use another starting pitcher. They could use another arm in the bullpen. They don't even know what's going to happen in the infield. There is a hole, whether it be at third base or at second base, there is a hole in that lineup, and this is without injuries. And to this point, Mark Attanasio has spent less than $3 million. Your team won the division by 10 games last year, and you are the one team in the division that has not gone out and spent money. Pittsburgh has spent more money than Mark Attanasio has done in this offseason. And you can go and say this team is good, and they're solid, and they're set, and that you like the young core, so you don't need to go and improve. I disagree with that. I think you always go and look, you always try to improve. Because that roster that you had last year, regardless, it could play better this year. That could be a 95 or 96 win team, but there was something missing when it got to the playoffs. And that has been the case the last 5 times that the team has been there. And you are consistently okay with just having a good regular season team and finding yourself in a first-round exit when it comes to the playoffs. That's kind of how you take that comment from Mark Attanasio. If he sold the team, I don't even know if you would be able to find a better buyer. I don't know who would want to go and buy a team in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the smallest market in all of professional sports. It's difficult, and I appreciate that Attanasio has provided the memories that he has with this Brewers franchise. But the thing is, he's done such a good job that it's a problem that he says those things. So I'm thankful that they get these opportunities and they're at least getting to the playoffs. But it sucks to watch him play so good and so consistent during the regular season and then just watch everything fall apart when it starts to matter at the end. And fans are starting to get frustrated with that. And I'm hopeful. I am hopeful for this Brewers team. I think they can be better this year. I think there still is a chance that they could go and win the World Series. But you'd like to see a little bit more effort brought forth and going and trying to get the roster and the talent there that should go win the World Series. Like, there's a difference between can do it and should do it. And I don't think the Brewers have been able to say should. Maybe in 2018 was going to be a tough year. 2011, that roster was, I think that 2011 team was one of the best I've ever seen, at least in Milwaukee standards. That team probably should have done it if they would have continued to play to their capabilities, but that Devil Magic team in St. Louis just decided to get hot as a rocket and run through everybody that October. But you wished that more managers, and it stinks that Milwaukee's included because Milwaukee's a successful franchise. There are other teams in Major League Baseball that have much more of an ownership problem, and 2, I think, are in the division. When's the last time Cincinnati has made a real run at anything? Probably that same 2010, 2011-ish. I know that they were in the playoffs back in 2020. For Pittsburgh, it's been at least 10 years, I think, since they've been to the playoffs, and they haven't made any consistent push ever since then. They don't sign anybody. They let Rowdy Tellez get benched, even though he's just a couple of at-bats away from a bonus. Like, they have a terrible ownership problem over Pittsburgh and Cincinnati and Miami and Oakland, which is now Sacramento due to the old ownership that was horrendous. Like, there are bad owners that don't want to go out and they don't want to go spend the money. And I hate being the whiny guy here with the microphone saying that Mark Attanasio is a bad owner, because he's not. Because it is the smallest market in baseball, and they're usually around 20th in payroll. So yeah, he spends a little bit more than he's expected to according to the market. But this team can go do it. This team is special. The foundation, the building blocks are there. I talked about it with Sam for one of my What's Gouda segments. I said it's Gouda that the Brewers have taken the right approach to going and building a solid foundation for a franchise. Your drafting and your player development the last couple of years have been grand slams. They have been incredible. Your coaching staff, all of it. It's been built the way a baseball team is supposed to be built. But you're just missing a couple of pieces. You can't home grow everything. There's that little extra step that you need to take. And the one team that I like to go back and think about is Kansas City, another small market, really in Missouri, like Kansas City. They were able 10 years ago to go to back-to-back World Series, and they won one. That's more than the Brewers have ever smelt, ever. In a 2-year span, Kansas City was able to do that. One of the smallest markets in all of baseball. They had their homegrown talent. Everything was there. They went out and they signed those free agents as well. They brought in guys at the trade deadline. They risked a lot. And they did it to go and win that World Series championship. And that World Series championship will never be forgotten, just like the one that I hope that Milwaukee can someday soon find themselves hoisting. So we'll see how it all plays out, but Attanasio under fire. I think deservingly so. It's hard to make those comments and not see a lot of positive reactions, especially for the fact that the team has been solid, has been to the playoffs, and they've been first-round exits for the last 5 times that they've been there. Yes, I'm happy that they're going there, but what's the point of going there if you might as well just turn the TV off once they get to the playoffs? Some other negative news coming out this week. Bobby Portis has been suspended by the NBA for 25 games. PED violations. He took tramadol. He thought it was Toradol. He was prescribed the tramadol as a painkiller. Ended up taking the Toradol. This is it's a touchy subject because it was Bobby Portis' agent. He came forward and said that Bobby thought what he was taking was legal. And it's like, well, no kidding. I mean, he would say that regardless of if he thought it was legal or not. But he was prescribed it by a doctor. He thought it was tramadol, but it was Toradol, which is on the illegal banned substance list for the NBA. And now Portis is not going to play for 25 games. So I will say you have to put blame on Bobby Portis because there is a line that you just can't cross. Like what you put in your body, you know you're going to get tested on. And if it's illegal, you're going to have to sit some time out. And that's the case. That's what happened here. I'm not going to say that Bobby's a bad person. I'm not even going to call him an idiot because I do a lot of silly things too that just you don't think about, and then all of a sudden you get dinged for it. Like a speeding ticket. You just go a little bit quick and you weren't thinking about it. Yeah. If you get prescribed something by a doctor and he says, yeah, you're good to take this, you're probably just going to listen to the doctor and you're probably going to take it. But there is some blame that has to fall on Bobby Portis for not taking the extra precaution and making sure that what was there was there. Like he thought it was Toradol, but it was tramadol. Those words are very similar. I'm sure he just looked and he's like, oh yeah, I've taken Toradol before. I'll be fine. But it was tramadol. Two different drugs. One's banned, one's not. So you can sympathize for him. Be like, that's human. That stuff sucks. What I will say is the NBA's suspension policy is going to be really funny. Not funny, but I think unfair. Miles Bridges punched his girlfriend in front of his kid and broke her face, and he got suspended for 30 games. But Bobby Portis messed up on taking a painkiller, and he gets 25. Like, what is the line that you're dinging these players for? I think they need to fix that. I'm not sure what it is. I don't think it's any bias against Milwaukee or anything that. I just think it's silly that domestic abuse gets the same amount of a slap on the wrist as a simple painkiller mistake does. So Bobby Portis out for 25 games. That's the negative news. That's the negative news for the show. We can move on some positive stuff as well. The Bucks did get the win over the Clippers yesterday, 116-110. The offense looked really fluky the first 3 quarters of the game, but they turned it on at the end there. Brook Lopez ended up having a great game. Giannis was good and solid. Kuzma hit a half-court buzzer beater, or more like a three-quarter court buzzer beater. That was really cool. Kevin Porter Jr. looked like that ISO player that they really needed. He was able to turn it up a little bit as well. 13 points in that win, and a nice victory for the Bucks against a James Harden-led team that torched him last time when Harden went for 41. So you like to see him get a little bit of that payback, and the Bucks getting back on that roll. We'll see how they can do without Bobby Portis in the front court. Badger basketball will be at home tomorrow to take on Oregon. Oregon is 8-8. They're 500 in the Big Ten. This should be you would think, a relatively easy book-it victory for the Badgers, especially the way that they've been playing. They're number 11 in the nation. They're playing at home. I don't expect too much trouble tomorrow, but Oregon will be in Madison. That game will be at 11 a.m. So Sam and I will be back on Monday. We'll recap everything that happened over the course of the weekend. Spring training baseball is back in Arizona. The Brewers will be in action tomorrow to take on the Cincinnati Reds. I'm not going to watch that game. It's spring training. I'll probably see some highlights. Maybe we have something to talk about when it comes back on Monday. I'm sure we will. So we'll see you then. I'm Cody Depius. I'd like to thank you for being here with us on this Friday. We'll be back Monday for another edition of A Little Bit of Cheese, your bite-sized Wisconsin sports podcast.